Hi everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Eric Cochran, and this is The Cochran Doctrine. Please like and subscribe to my channel down below. So, I am now pleased to announce that I have a new Apple MacBook Air, which I will be able to edit my videos with, something that I have been unable to do previously. Prior to this, I have just been shooting and uploading. My channel is definitely going to be getting a little bit political going forward as I get into some more controversial topics, but I'm going to be steadily warming up to that along the way. So, the first couple of videos that I'm going to be making going forward will be regarding my thoughts on immigration. And that being that I do support immigration as long as it is done legally. In my pilot episode, I know that I said I believe diversity is what makes America great. I like knowing that there are those around the world who envy us, because after all, we are the richest, most powerful country in the world. Unless you're a Native American, we were all immigrants to this country at one point, and we are who we are as a nation because of it. I think that we should all know our heritage and be proud of it. So, a little bit about mine. My last name is, of course, Cochran. For many years, I believed that we were Irish, but in reality, I'm Scottish. I understand that some of my paternal cousins have traced our Cochran clan all the way back to the 17th century Dunbar, Scotland. Aside from that, the true Irish way of spelling Cochran is C-O-C-H-R-A-N-E with a silent E at the end, which is a major Irish trademark. While I am Catholic, I should add that my paternal grandfather was born Protestant and converted when he married my mostly Dutch grandmother, her maiden name being Van Dyke. My father's side of the family was here before the Civil War, but my mom's side of the family definitely came after. Both my maternal grandparents were born in Chicago within months of each other in 1924. My maternal grandfather was a second-generation Czech-American. Born Juraska at birth, he changed it to simply J later on when he went to work for the State Department at the height of McCarthyism. My Nana J, I understand, was a third-generation Lithuanian-American whose family immigrated here from the 19th century Russian Empire. So, as best I know, I'm about a quarter each Scottish, Dutch, Czech, and Lithuanian. What heritage would I say I most identify with? Well, despite me acknowledging that my mother's side of the family is who has had the most more influence on me, I feel I identify mostly with my Scottish side. It's the name I do, after all, carry. I grew up going to the Stone Mountain Highland Games many years, every fall in Atlanta. Great memories. Being Catholic, I am also pleased to say that St. Patrick was in reality a Scot who brought Catholicism to Ireland. And to top it all off, we are for sure a British Isles dog-loving family. Growing up, I've had a Border Collie, we've had 2 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, and now a Yorkshire Terrier in our household. My most beloved dog was, of course, my sweet Abigail, the Border Collie, who are probably the most important working dogs that they have in Scotland and Ireland. So, after we were founded as a country, who were some of the largest immigrant groups who came to America starting in the early 19th century? Well, first and foremost were, of course, the Irish, largely due to the potato famine. It is estimated that 1 million of them starved to death as a result, and another 2 million would get on boats and leave, arriving at the docks of Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. If we've seen movies like The Gangs of New York, the Irish refugees were hated when they first came here by locals in northeastern cities. While I might be Scottish, I can certainly relate to them being hated, largely because of the fact that they were Catholic, which I am. Along with it, the Scots and the Irish together have had hostile relations against their much more powerful neighbor, England, over the centuries. The Irish were, of course, seen as heavy drinking, hard partying people who had come here from one of the poorest countries in Europe. Starting off, they were doing some of the most dreaded jobs imaginable for the worst pay. They worked on railroads, canals, dug ditches for sewer lines, pretty much all the undesirable things we could imagine back then. But within a couple generations, many of their children and grandchildren had elevated themselves into becoming a significant part of the police and firefighting force in major cities. In some of our nation's largest cities, with major Irish populations, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, by the late 19th century, constables had been dubbed Paddies. Why? Because they were mostly Irish. Also, where do you think the nickname Paddy Wagon came from? The carriage where they rounded up all the criminals on the streets. The fact that all the police were Irish. Well into the 20th century, Irish Americans were, in our nation's largest cities, synonymous with the police and firefighting departments. For many Irish families, it was generational, that their sons would follow their father's footsteps into becoming police and firefighters. In all fairness, who is probably America's most beloved, fictitious Irish-American cop? I would say Magnum-wielding Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan of the SFPD. You know, he definitely made reference to his Irish heritage if we've seen the movies. As a history student in college, I wrote my senior research paper on the growth of the 19th century railroad industry and how it was the industry we showed the rest of the world that we were dominant in that time frame. First and second generation Irish Americans were also a significant force in helping build the first transcontinental railroad. Many Irish rail workers from the Northeast agreed to take up management positions out west, overseeing the construction of the routes where it was less desirable to live. The gold rush of 1849, of course, caused the population of California to swell. Many who came were Irish immigrants, and it wasn't long before Chinese refugees fleeing the Taiping Rebellion showed up in the San Francisco Bay Area as well. These Chinese immigrants would eventually agree to do the most difficult part of building the Transcontinental Railroad, carving the needed 400-mile path through the Sierras under the supervision of mostly Irish workers. Apart from the Irish, another major group who immigrated here prior to the Civil War were the Germans. Unlike the Irish, though, the Germans were a significantly more wealthy, educated, and industrialist people, as they always have been. They, along with other immigrants from Scandinavia, were certainly motivated to come here by the promise of free land as the frontier continued opening up. Much of this legacy, German and Scandinavian influence, we can still see today in the most rural parts of the upper Midwest, in particular in the Dakotas. Of course, in the half-century after the Civil War leading up to World War I, tens of millions of immigrants came here from Europe. Demographics would shift, though, from Northern and Western Europe to Southern and Eastern Europe. Once again, my mother's side of the family was among them. This was, of course, when much of the modern-day Jewish American community immigrated here, many of whom were well-educated and business-oriented. Many, though, just like the Irish, came here with little skills, money, and unlike the Irish, a significant language barrier to overcome. I would say the two most noteworthy ethnicities from this wave were the Italians and the Poles. Initially started as our nation's primary railroad junction, Chicago would become the world's fastest growing city of the 19th century, largely fueled by immigration. By 1900, it was our country's second largest city after only New York. It is estimated in 1900 some 40% of people living in New York and Chicago were either first or second generation Americans. And the largest decade's worth of immigrants was yet to come between 1900 and 1909, with approximately 9.5 million. Excuse me. In New York and New Jersey, many Italian immigrants were working in urban factories, sweatshops, and built many of the skyscrapers that we see today. If you look at the cities where the Polish Americans mostly settled, i.e. Pittsburgh, Detroit, Buffalo, and of course Chicago, steel mills, mining, and manufacturing are the industries that they went to work in. Immigration built modern America from our industrial base to our largest cities, all through the Gilded Age. If we look across America today, I think that it's wonderful. In some of our largest cities have the tendency to be particularly proud of one to maybe two ethnic groups whose heritage has played a major role in that city's history and development. Today, we can see it in the form of the cuisine/restaurants that city is best known for, as well as at least one annual celebration that may take place in that city that they're very well known for. Going down the list of every example I can think of. Boston is, of course, very proud of its Irish heritage. There's a pub on every street, as they say. They host the largest annual St. Patrick's Day celebration each year. And what is the name of their NBA team? The Celtics. New York and Upper New Jersey, I think, really pride themselves on their Italian and Jewish heritage. What food do we most associate with New York and Upper New Jersey? Pizza, pasta, bagels, delis. That's the Italian and the Jewish influence, respectively. Moving over to the Midwest, Milwaukee. Very proud of its German heritage. What is Milwaukee best known for? Beer, breweries. They are America's beer city. You know, beer is to Milwaukee what wine pretty much is to Napa Valley. The baseball team, the Brewers, is what they're called. No coincidence there. And to top it all off, Milwaukee hosts the nation's largest, most well-known Oktoberfest celebration each year. I nearly misspoke and said Chicago. I'm moving on to Chicago now. In Chicago, I would say, is the capital of Polish America. What is Chicago best known for in terms of food? Hot dogs, kielbasa. That's Polish heritage, along with the fact that Kazimierz Pulaski Day is a statewide holiday held the first Monday of March every single year. Moving out all the way to the West Coast, San Francisco, very proud of its Chinese American heritage. Every year for the last 160 years, they have been hosting the largest Chinese New Year celebration in America. And of course, their Chinese restaurants are renowned nationwide. And then, concluding here in the South, New Orleans. New Orleans is the French Creole gem of America. Okay? Creole/Cajun is really a combination of French with a little bit of Spanish and Afro-Caribbean culture blended into one. New Orleans is very unique in the United States in that manner, as is its food. which is known worldwide. Of course, gumbo, jambalaya. Mardi Gras. You know, New Orleans is one of America's historically most devoutly Catholic cities. And of course, Mardi Gras is tied to the Lenten season. Not to mention, Holy Week is also a time for celebrations and festivities as well. And moving right next door to Texas, San Antonio, I would say is definitely America's most prideful Mexican-American gem. It was, of course, at one point, part of Mexico. And just like in New Orleans, Holy Week, very devoutly Catholic city, is a very big time for gatherings and celebrations. So, this is, I think, just a wonderful quality that America has in some of its major cities. So, those are my views when we look back on the history of immigration into this country. And in my next vlog, I'm going to be talking about immigration in more modern terms. So, this was my introduction. Thanks for watching. I'm Eric Cochran, and this is the Cochran Doctrine.